Iran attacks 12,000 civilians in Tehran as United States aircraft respond with missiles.
At 9:38 p.m. local time, the center of Tehran turns violent. Crowds fill the streets after days of protest. Then everything changes. Armored vehicles roll forward. Helicopters drop lower over the city. Gunfire cuts through the noise. People run in every direction. Within minutes, emergency rooms begin to overflow. Phones stop connecting. Internet signals fade and then go dark. What started as public protest is now something else. This is no longer crowd control. This is force used at full scale, in the heart of the capital. Across the region, warning screens light up. Intelligence teams mark the shift. Live feeds confirm it. The Iranian regime is not pulling back. It is pressing forward, using military power against its own streets. In Washington, the assessment is fast and blunt. This was not an accident. This was not panic. This was a choice. A signal sent with weapons instead of words. And here is the mistake. Tehran believed this would stay inside its borders. It believed the world would look away. It did not. Because at this moment, the United States is watching every move. If you want to follow this confrontation as it unfolds, second by second, make sure you subscribe now. What is happening in Tehran is not just another protest crackdown. This city is the center of power. Every major security command, every political order, every internal force answers to what happens here. When weapons are used in these streets, the message is meant to travel far beyond the crowd in front of the cameras. From a tactical point of view, this location matters because it concentrates control. The regime believes that if it dominates the capital, it can break resistance everywhere else. That is why armored units were sent in, not police. That is why helicopters flew low. This was not about restoring order. It was about showing strength fast, before the movement could spread. But on the ground, this was never about strategy. For the people running through the streets, this was about staying alive. Doctors inside the city reported a sudden change in injuries. What they saw no longer looked like riot control wounds. They looked like battlefield trauma. Hospitals filled faster than staff could respond. Families searched for loved ones without phones, without internet, without answers. That shift is critical. Once a government treats its own streets like a combat zone, it changes how the outside world responds. This is why Washington did not see this as an internal issue anymore. It was seen as a deliberate escalation. A choice made by the regime, knowing it would be seen. And here is the larger risk. When violence reaches this level in a capital city, it rarely stays contained. Markets react. Allies hesitate. Military planners start preparing for scenarios no one wanted weeks ago. This is why this moment matters, not because it is loud, but because it resets the rules of what comes next. The first alert does not come from the streets. It comes from a quiet room, far from the noise, where screens never sleep. Satellite feeds refresh. Signals tighten. Analysts notice the same pattern at the same time. The situation inside Tehran has crossed from unrest into something far more serious. Inside a United States operations center, one officer leans closer to his screen. A marker changes color. That single shift confirms what no one wanted to say out loud. This is no longer internal security. This is military force used against civilians in a capital city. The room goes silent for a moment. Then phones start ringing. The response is fast but controlled. No speeches, no cameras, just orders moving through secure lines. Aircraft crews are notified. Naval units adjust their positions. Fuel loads increase. Flight schedules tighten. Every action is defensive, but every move carries weight. This is how the United States signals attention without firing a shot. On one screen, a live feed stutters as Tehran's internet blackout deepens. On another, regional assets come into focus. Nothing has launched yet, but everyone understands how close this moment is to turning irreversible. One wrong step, one misread signal, and restraint disappears. As preparations continue, planners begin running scenarios in parallel. Not strikes, not targets, but timing. How long the pressure can hold. How fast events on the ground could spiral. Every model shows the same risk. Once military assets are placed on alert, the margin for error shrinks fast. Even silence becomes a signal. Across command networks, the same question keeps returning. How far is Tehran willing to go to prove control? And how far is Washington willing to wait before deterrence turns into action? No one expects calm to return overnight. The streets are already changed. The calculations are already in motion. This is the pressure point. Iran believes force will end the protests. The United States believes force will only widen the crisis. Two calculations moving in opposite directions, on the same clock. And this is where the audience matters. If you believe Iran has gone too far and the United States must respond, press 1 inch the comments. If you think restraint is still possible before this turns into open conflict, press 9. Subscribe to stay with us, because what happens next depends on which side blinks first. As the night drags on, the situation does not cool down, it tightens. On the streets of Tehran, security units hold their positions. Armored vehicles stay parked at key intersections. Helicopters continue slow circles above the city, low enough to be heard, high enough to stay out of reach. No one knows when the next order will come, only that it will. At the same time, pressure builds far beyond Iran's borders. United States military activity across the region increases in small but visible ways. Aircraft shift bases. Crews are kept on standby longer than planned. Maintenance teams work through the night. None of this is announced, but none of it is hidden either. In moments like this, movement itself is the message. Inside command centers, radar screens stay crowded. Operators track every signal, every unexpected change. In close situations like this, even a small miscalculation matters. A few miles in the wrong direction, a few minutes too late. That is how controlled tension turns into chaos. Silence fills the gaps between updates, and those gaps feel longer every time. Crew fatigue begins to show. People have been awake for hours, running on coffee and adrenaline. Decisions are checked twice, sometimes 3 times. In modern standoffs, human limits matter as much as hardware. One tired mistake can undo weeks of planning. Everyone knows this. That knowledge adds weight to every order. Back in Tehran, the streets remain tense. Protesters do not fully disappear. Security forces do not fully withdraw. It becomes a waiting game, with both sides testing how much pressure the other can endure. The regime believes persistence will break resistance. The United States believes escalation will expose weakness. This is no longer about a single night or a single city. It is about momentum, about who controls the pace and who is forced to react. If you think Iran is pushing this situation toward a point of no return, press 1 inch the comments. If you believe this standoff can still be pulled back before it explodes, press 9. Subscribe to stay with us, because the next shift in this escalation could come without warning. What changes this confrontation is not a strike, it is a leak. As the internet blackout deepens inside Tehran, fragments of information begin slipping through anyway. Short videos, voice messages, medical reports sent quietly to contacts outside the country. None of them tell the full story alone. Together, they paint a picture the regime did not want the world to see. Doctors describe injuries that no longer match crowd control. Families report missing relatives who never returned home. Hospital staff talk about hallways filled beyond capacity. These details spread fast, moving across borders faster than any official statement. The blackout was meant to contain the damage. Instead, it confirms it. This is the moment the balance starts to shift. A regime can control streets. It can shut down networks, but it struggles to control narrative once evidence escapes. International pressure begins to rise, not because of rumors, but because of consistency. Different sources, same story. Inside Iran's leadership, this creates a new problem. Force may hold the streets, but it cannot erase what is already seen. Every hour the protests continue. Every image that leaks out weakens the claim that order has been restored. Control becomes expensive. Silence becomes suspicious. For Washington, this twist matters. The crisis is no longer judged only by intelligence feeds, but by public reaction. Allies start asking questions. Markets respond. Diplomatic channels grow tense. The space for quiet de-escalation shrinks. This is where the standoff becomes more dangerous. Not because of what has happened, but because of what can no longer be hidden. If you think these leaks will force Iran to change course, press 1 inch the comments. If you believe the regime will double down despite the exposure, press 9. Subscribe to stay with us, because this turn may decide how far the confrontation goes. The moment everyone feared finally arrives, not with noise, but with silence. In Tehran, the streets hold their breath. Armored units remain in place. Protesters stay scattered, watching from doorways and side streets. No one knows who will move first, but everyone knows the margin is gone. Across the region, United States forces reach peak readiness. Aircraft sit fueled and armed. Crews are strapped in, waiting for a signal that may never come, or may come without warning. In situations like this, the hardest order is not to act. It is to wait. Inside command rooms, timelines blur. Updates arrive in short bursts. One screen shows city movement, another shows regional traffic. A third tracks communications from Tehran's leadership. Each new piece of information adds pressure. No one speaks unless they have to. Then, a single message moves through secure channels. It is short, it is direct. It confirms what Washington has already decided. Any further use of force against civilians will trigger consequences. The words are calm, but the meaning is sharp. This is the final warning before deterrence turns into action. Back on the streets, the effect is immediate but uneven. Some units pull back slightly, others hold firm. Confusion spreads through the chain of command. Orders are questioned. Timing matters now more than power. A delay of minutes could prevent escalation. A delay of seconds could cause it. This is the most dangerous point of the entire crisis, when both sides are fully prepared and neither wants to be seen as the one who backed down. History shows this is when accidents happen. A misheard order, a nervous trigger, a move meant to signal strength that is read as attack. Right now, the confrontation stands on that edge. One decision away from pulling back. One decision away from breaking open. No one in that room believes this crisis ends cleanly. Even if the night passes without shots, the damage is already done. Trust is broken. Lines are drawn. Both sides know the next encounter will be faster, colder, and far less forgiving. If you think the United States warning will stop Iran from escalating further, press 1 inch the comments. If you believe this moment still ends in open confrontation, press 9. Subscribe to stay with us, because the outcome of this climax will shape everything that follows. By the time dawn approaches, the streets of Tehran are quieter, but nothing feels resolved. Armored vehicles remain in place. Security forces keep their distance but do not withdraw. Protesters move less openly, yet they do not disappear. What happened overnight cannot be undone. The immediate result is clear. The regime still holds the ground, but at a cost it cannot easily measure. Images have escaped. Testimony has reached outside borders. The blackout did not erase the story. It amplified it. Every hour that passes now works against the claim that control has been restored. Beyond Iran, the effects spread quickly. Markets react with caution. Allies begin reassessing their positions. Diplomatic channels that once moved slowly now operate under pressure. The situation is no longer framed as internal stability. It is framed as risk. Political risk, economic risk, security risk. For the United States, this confrontation reinforces a hard lesson. Events inside one capital can reshape an entire region in days. A decision made to suppress unrest can trigger military readiness thousands of miles away. This is how modern crises work. Fast, layered, and difficult to reverse once momentum builds. Inside Iran's leadership, the challenge grows sharper. Force may silence streets temporarily, but it cannot rebuild legitimacy. Each additional crackdown narrows options. Each delay increases isolation. What began as an attempt to assert strength now exposes vulnerability. This is why analysts say the crisis has entered a new phase. Not open war, not peace, but a dangerous middle ground where deterrence replaces dialogue and every move is watched for intent. The streets survived the night. The region did not return to normal. And the next confrontation, whenever it comes, will not start from zero. Because this was not the end. It was the test run. What matters now is memory. Governments remember moments like this. Militaries plan around them. The next time tensions rise, restraint will come later, not sooner. This crisis has shifted expectations, and once that line moves, it never fully moves back.